Teaching StarCraft Part 1 Episode 3 Basic Gameplay. In this episode we will be explaining how one actually plays a game of StarCraft II. We will go over the basic StarCraft game interface, basic keyboard and mouse controls, as well as the rules of StarCraft II. Finally, we will play through a simple game of StarCraft II, explaining our actions as they occur. Interface. Here we are in a game of StarCraft II. As you can see, the screen is broken up into roughly 4 regions. The main screen covering the entire top of the screen, the 2 small regions in the bottom left and bottom right, and the long panel down the middle. The keyboard on the screen is not part of the game and is only there so players can follow my keyboard actions as well as my mouse actions. The main screen is where most of the game action will occur. This is the screen from which you will be selecting units, ordering them around, and placing buildings. In the bottom left-hand corner is what is called the Minimap. The Minimap acts as sort of an atlas or pocket map, showing the area of the current StarCraft match. The white rectangular shape on the Minimap shows the area you're currently looking at and is showing up on the main screen. Notice the white rectangle only highlights a small portion of the map. You can move your main screen to other areas of the map in several ways. You can click on parts of the minimap, or drag along parts of the minimap. You can also use the various scroll options. Mouse scroll is done by moving your mouse to the side of the screen. Keyboard scroll is done by using the arrow keys. Finally, drag scroll is done by holding down the mouse wheel and moving your mouse around. There are other ways of moving around the map as well, such as through hotkeys. These will be talked about more heavily in the next episode. The third section we want to talk about is the long panel down the bottom middle. This section gives you details on whatever units or buildings you are currently selected on. To select a new building or unit, simply click on it or drag a box around it. You can obviously select more than one unit at a time. Selecting units will have a circle around them so you know which units you have currently selected. As you can see, the bottom panel also tells you how many units and of what type you have selected. If you click on a single unit, the bottom panel will show you more details about that unit. You can also hover over certain parts of the panel for more information. We will talk more about these unit attributes when we discuss rules. Finally, the bottom right hand panel shows the command card. Make sure to deselect Simple Command Card for the advanced version of this panel. Here you can see all of the actions you can order a unit or a building to do. If you have it selected, you can also see the keyboard hotkey for these actions. Of course, you can choose to use either the keyboard hotkeys or click on the command card options to move your units and order them around. We do not recommend using the command card to move units around the map. Most of these controls will be discussed in the section coming up next. There are a few other things to notice about the interface as well. The bottom left hand shows a game clock, as well as 2 buttons that show the number of and allow you to select all of your idle workers or your entire army. The bottom right has buttons for the help menu, social features, and the main menu. Finally, in the top right corner we have the last important piece of information in the interface. This shows you how many minerals you have, how much Vespene you have, and how much supply you are using, divided by the amount of supply you have available. If you need more information, most buttons and icons give more information if you hover over them. Basic controls. Here we will be discussing the commands issued to units and buildings. There are a variety of other commands you can issue as well, but aside from control groups, which will be discussed in the next episode, they are not terribly useful, so we will ignore them for now. All the controls you can issue to units and buildings are located in the command card in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. The only exception to this is right-clicking, which in general will order the move command for units and set rally points for buildings. There are a few exceptions to this rule and they will be pointed out as we get to them. Some of these exceptions involve special abilities and will only be discussed in the race description episodes. Again, the move command simply orders a unit to move to a specific location. If for some reason that location cannot be reached, the unit might end up getting stuck or cancel its command. You can also right-click on a unit to make your unit follow that second unit. Workers can also automatically gather resources by right-clicking on them. You can also automatically return cargo by right-clicking on your primary structure. You cannot click M and move command to a mineral patch in order to gather resources. The second ability is the Stop ability. Stop orders your units to stop whatever commands they are currently following, as well as additional commands that have queued up. We will talk about queues later in this section. Stop will also cancel abilities such as Hold Position. Hold Position is an ability that makes a unit stand still regardless of what happens. If your unit is not on hold position, it will automatically chase down and attack enemy units provided you have an attacking unit. However, if you use the hold command ability, your unit will stand still while your enemies walk into range and will not chase them down. They will still attack enemy units. The other thing that hold position does is to make your unit unpushable. Unpushable units cannot be forced out of the way by colliding units. However, if you are not in hold position, units may be pushed out of the way. The fourth ability is the Patrol ability. The Patrol ability allows your unit to move back and forth between multiple points at once. It will also cause the unit to attack any enemy units that walk into the vicinity and chase them down. You can patrol between more than 2 points at once if you hold down the Shift key, which queues up additional actions. If you decide to patrol between 3 points and make them into a closed loop, the unit will start walking around in that loop as opposed to back and forth. The last ability on the top row is the Attack ability. The Attack ability is a lot like the Move command, except it will cause your unit to attack any enemy units that get near it to its destination. You can also attack command directly on top of units, or you can right-click on enemy units to attack them. You can also attack your own buildings with a click or neutral buildings with a click. You cannot right-click on your own buildings or neutral buildings to attack them. The next two rows on the command card are generally reserved for special abilities. Some of these special abilities might need to be upgraded. Hover over abilities to see what they do. Of course, workers have many special abilities such as gather resources and build structures. Some of these abilities might cost minerals. Some spellcaster abilities may also cost something called energy. Buildings have slightly different commands than units. Most buildings are used for creating units or upgrading. Some buildings also have special abilities. Hover over these abilities to see what they do. The last ability of most buildings is the Set Rally Point ability. Buildings that have production capabilities will automatically send their units to that rally point once they are built. If you are using a primary instruction to rally workers, they will also begin mining resources automatically when they reach a mineral patch. They can also begin mining Vespene automatically if there is already a Vespene geyser which has a refinery, assimilator, or extractor built on top of it. Before moving on to the next section, let's talk briefly about queues. You can queue up additional commands by holding down the Shift key. Units will complete their first command before moving on to additional commands. As long as the Shift key is held down, new commands will not override your original command and will only be ordered after the original command is completed. If you try to order a command and Shift queue a command that is not possible, that command may be skipped at some point in time, and the unit may queue up to the next command automatically. Shift is used for other things as well. For example, you might want to think about Shift as an add button. It not only adds in commands, which by the way, you can queue up different types of commands at once. Shift key also adds in units to a control group. Simply hold down the Shift key and click on the units you want to add to your current selection. You can also use the control key to select multiple units at once. Holding down the control key will select all units of the same type in the vicinity. If you hold down control and shift, it will add in all units of the same type in the vicinity to your current selection. Shift and control can be used to deselect units as well, and you can use either the unit panel in the bottom section or the on-game screen. You cannot control and shift deselect units from the main screen. You can only shift deselect units from the main screen. Control shift on the main screen will always try to add units to your current selection. Finally, I should point out that most of the commands issued are issued to all units currently selected at once, including buildings. Certain special abilities can obviously only be activated by specific types of units. In order to get to these abilities, use the tab button to tab through your various units in your selection. These abilities will in general be all activated at once, but spellcasting abilities that cost energy or building structures will generally only be activated once per click, as opposed to being activated for all units at once. Be sure to hover over these abilities to make sure you know what they do before casting them. Rules. This section talks about combat rules and the objectives of StarCraft. Other rules relating to special abilities will be discussed during the race discussion episodes. Some rules may not be discussed at all, either because they are only applying to very specific situations or because they are too obvious to merit discussion. If you need more information about certain rules, there is a resource in the description of this episode that should be helpful. Every unit or building in StarCraft has a set amount of life, or hit points. Protoss units also have shields. Life and shields work roughly the same way, except that shields will slowly regenerate over time if they are left out of combat. Zerg units and structures will also regenerate life over time, and Terran units can heal or repair their hit points. A unit loses life points or shields when it is attacked. There are certain situations or abilities that cause life points to be lost or gained as well. If a unit loses all of its hit points or life, it will be destroyed. Different units do different amounts of damage. Hover over the attack icon of a unit to see how much damage it does. Also note things such as the range of the unit and its attack speed. Notice that this immortal also has a separate damage to armored units. Each unit and structure has special abilities such as light, armored, mechanical, or biological, each of which affect damage taken or special abilities. As an additional note, all buildings are armored and structured. Units also have an armor class. Armor reduces the amount of damage taken by a unit. For example, this Marauder has 1 armor, and this Immortal does 50 damage to armored units such as the Marauder. So it will do 50 minus 1, which is 49 damage per hit to the Marauder. Since the Marauder has 125 hit points, we should expect it to have 125 minus 49 is 76 hit points after it is hit by the Immortal once. You can also upgrade your attack and armor to increase damage or armor over time. These upgrades affect all units already built or units that will be built in the future. There are also special abilities that will increase armor, damage, range, or otherwise affect the basic combat system in StarCraft II. Now let's talk about some of the special features that units can have. Some units have energy. Energy regenerates over time, roughly at 25 energy in 40 seconds, and is used for spells and special abilities. Some units are flying. Flying units can only be attacked by specific types of weapons. To see if your unit can attack air units, hover over the attack icon to see if it targets air or ground. Some units may not be able to target ground units as well. Finally, I want to talk about cloaked and burrowed units. Certain units cannot be detected by normal means and are said to be either cloaked or burrowed. Most of the time, these units create a shimmer or some sort of small sign to let you know that they are there. You can use the mouse wheel scroll to zoom in or out to try to get a better look. But even then, it can sometimes be difficult to spot cloaked or burrowed units. Even if you know cloaked or burrowed units are around, you cannot attack them directly, but only through area effect or splash damage. In order to see burrowed units or cloaked units, you must use a unit with the special detection ability. As with all units, detection units have a specific sight range, and they must be in the vicinity of cloaked or burrowed units to see them. There are also cloak and burrow detection abilities, such as the scanner sweep on an orbital command center. Speaking of sight range, you may notice that parts of this map are grayed out. This is called fog of war. At any point in time in a match, you can only see based on your sight range and the position of your units. All other areas will appear grayed out. Please note that high ground cannot be scouted by ground units unless they are on equal or higher ground level. There are also certain terrain objects and features that may reveal or obstruct vision. Air units have unobstructed vision no matter where they go. Now let's talk about the objectives of StarCraft II. In order to win a game of StarCraft, you simply have to destroy all of your opponent's buildings. Units do not count. Obviously, losing StarCraft games is done the same way, by losing all of your structures. Along the way to victory or defeat, you may also end up losing your primary structure. If you have no primary structure, the remainder of your buildings will be revealed to your opponents until you can build a new one or you are defeated. Ties can happen in StarCraft as well, if neither player is capable of finishing the other player off. Ties are pretty difficult to come by and are difficult for the game to detect. There is a link in the description of this episode that describes the stalemates in more detail. This link is to a Wikipedia article. Wikipedia in general is like Wikipedia, except that it is designed specifically for StarCraft II information. If you have questions about any topics not covered in this tutorial, you might be able to find more answers there. Sample game. Now that we are somewhat familiar with the controls, interface, and game rules, let's play a real game. This is a game versus a very easy AI opponent. Notice that my 6 starting workers automatically start mining. I can build more workers in my Nexus. Notice that I can also rally point to the minerals so that my probes start mining right away when they are built. I should continue to build probes to increase my economy. Notice that I use my keyboard to build probes because it's much more effective than using my mouse. Once I have the minerals, I should also consider building a pylon. To build a pylon, press B and then E on my keyboard, and then place the pylon down. Probes do not need to be next to buildings in order to continue building them, so I can feel free to send my probes back to mining. I should also build more probes at my Nexus to increase my economy. Notice that I can use the Chrono Boost ability to increase the speed at which my probes build. The Chrono Boost ability is special to the Protoss, and it requires energy, so I should feel free to use it whenever I want because energy increases over time for free. Now that the pylon is done, I can build over 10 supply of probes. Probes cost 1 supply, so each probe increases my supply used by 1. I should be sure to continue to build pylons if I notice that my supply used divided by my supply available is getting very, very close to 1. I can also build a gateway now that my pylon is finished. To build a gateway, I press B and then G and place down my gateway. The gateway will take some time to build, so in the meanwhile I should feel free to continue to build my economy. And I can also start mining gas by building a Vespene geyser, a simulator rather, on a Vespene geyser. I will also build more probes with the Chrono Boost functionality, and I should build more pylons. Pylons, in addition to securing supply also allow you to build along larger areas of the map, since Protoss can only build near supply fields, which are created by the pylon. Now that a simulator is done, I should also begin mining Vespene gas. Once this gateway is done, I can start building zealots. I can also rally point these zealots to this ramp, which is the only entrance to my base by ground. If I rally point to this entrance, zealots will automatically move there once they are finished building from the gateway. I can also chrono boost units out of my gateway. The gateway also unlocks new technologies, such as the cybernetics core. I will build the cybernetics core over here so that I can continue to build up my technology. I should also focus on building more of my economy up, as well as continue to build army units. This zealot needs to be holding position at my ramp so that it will not chase enemy units. Although it is not often a good idea to hold position with melee units, since they will not attack any units that come within its vicinity unless they are right next to the unit, we will hold position this unit for now so that we do not have to pay attention to it and see if it chases down enemy units awkwardly. We can also hold position this unit, and we can select both units at once by holding down the control hotkey or shift adding them into a group. If I press stop, they will no longer hold position. Let's not make them hold position anymore, because we do know they are melee units and we do want them to chase down enemy units, otherwise they will not be able to attack them easily. Let's build a stalker now that my cybernetics core is finished. The stalker requires gas, as do sentries, so I should be careful to see how many stalkers I build over time, and I should mine lots of Vespene gas so that I can continue to pump out these more expensive, stronger units. The mothership core can also be built, but as you can notice, the amount of supply is listed in red, meaning I do not have enough resources for it. I should build a couple more pylons to ensure that I have the resources and supply to continue to build units. I should also build a couple more gateways so that I have more production facilities from which to train units out of. You can of course train multiple units up at a single production facility at once, but they will not do very much unless they are the current unit being built. The additional units are just waiting online, such as at a grocery store, and cannot be built until the first unit is already completed. As a result, it is not a good idea to queue up units on buildings unless you plan on leaving this building alone for a long time and need your actions per minute to be done doing other things around the map. Notice that once my cybernetics core is finished, I can also upgrade my units in some ways. These only upgrade air units and allow my gateways to upgrade into warp gates, which I do not want for this game, so I will not be upgrading units for now. Instead, I will continue to build up more units, such as the stalkers and the sentries, and the mothership core. Make sure to chrono boost as often as possible so your units come out very quickly. I can also rally point my nexus to specific locations on the map to allow this mothership core to rally along with my gateways. Make sure to rally back to your mineral patch so that you can continue making probes that mine minerals as opposed to being sent out to your ramp. Now that all my gateways are done, I can also build units out of multiple gateways at once by holding down the control key and then selecting a gateway. I can now build multiple sentries, and they will not be queued up in a single gateway, but they will be built along my multiple gateways at once. Clicking the E button once does not build 4 sentries at once, but only a single sentry, so I should be sure to press the E button multiple times, or the S button multiple times, in order to build sentries and stalkers. Now that I have a lot of units out, I should feel free to move out along the map. Let's wait for these extra 4 stalkers to be built in order to move out on the map. I will chrono boost them out so they come out sooner. Notice that these sentries do not move out on the map with my other sentries when they are built. This is because I did not rally point these additional gateways. I can set multiple rally points at once by control clicking my gateways and then right clicking on the location I want these sentries to be sent to once they are built. Now that the stalkers are finished, I can feel free to move out along the map. My opponent is attacking me, and if I use the right click command, my units will move away from that opponent without attacking him back. Instead, I should use the A click command in order to attack this opponent while moving. Let's select all my units at once using either Shift or Control options. And now let's move out along the map. As I explore the map, I can see more areas of the map and see if my opponent is anywhere nearby. Most maps have 2 default starting locations or more, so I know where my opponent is on this map since this is the only other default starting location. Make sure to A-click in order to move to your opponent's base so that you continue to attack units that are on its way. These stalkers move at a faster speed than the rest of my units, so I should be careful about A-clicking my units across long distances. My mothership core is flying as well, so it will ignore terrain. Make sure to keep your mothership core with your army by attacking short distances instead of long distances at once. I should also be careful to allow my economy to build up and my minerals to store up over time. Since I do not want to focus on these gateways, I will queue up a couple of stalkers for now, either by clicking the stalker button or pressing the buttons on my keyboard. I can also rally point directly to my enemy's base so that my reinforcements attack alongside me. Now let's move into my opponent's base. My opponent has some cloak units, as you can see from the shimmers on the map, but I do not care about them for now. Again, I should make sure to click the attack move command. I can also focus on using special abilities while my units use their attack command and automatically attack my enemy units. Special abilities will not be automatically activated, so you should be careful to use them during battles by yourself, as opposed to focusing on using the A-click commands. I should also be aware of my opponent's economy and focus on killing my opponent's economy above all else. I should use a couple of special abilities to help ensure my victory in this situation, since I have a lot of energy, and again, energy regenerates over time at a fairly quick rate. Notice that my reinforcements are arriving. I can also send them into the base by selecting them and pressing the A-click buttons. My opponent wishes to surrender and has typed in GG into the chat. GG is a way to allow your opponent to know that you have decided to surrender the game, and should only be used in a situation where you are surrendering. GG stands for good game, and it is common manners and etiquette to type in GG whenever you are about to leave a game. You should also feel free to type in GLFF, HF for good luck, have fun at the beginning of games, as it is proper manners and etiquette. I will not be accepting this AI surrender ability so that I can continue to kill off all his buildings and reveal what happens when I win in that fashion. Now that my opponent's nexus has been destroyed, he has no primary structures, so he is being revealed. I can see all of his buildings on the map regardless of the position of my units and the fog of war if he is revealed. I cannot see enemy units while his buildings are revealed, unless they are within my sight range. Now let's finish off these last 3 pylons and end the game. Notice I can shift Q commands as well, so that I attack additional pylons after the initial ones go down. And there it is, the first game of StarCraft II that is completed in this tutorial. You can go to the score screen afterwards in order to check out the various statistics of the game. You also gain experience per game, depending on how many resources you created and how many enemies you have destroyed, as well as the game length. Notice as you gain levels, you will unlock portraits as well as other special things such as decals and animations. Be sure to check out the various tabs in the victory screen or the defeat screen to check out how the game went. Before the next episode of Teaching StarCraft, you should try playing your first game of StarCraft II. When you are just starting out, you should not worry too much about winning games. Instead, you should focus on exploring the game options and trying out the controls. You will have to use these controls at increasing speeds as you get better at the game, so it is important that you are familiar with them. You should also try to use your keyboard and mouse effectively. The next episode will talk more about mechanics and ways to play effectively. Please also be sure to check out the Wikipedia page in the episode description. This is Adahn, and I'll see you next time on Teaching StarCraft. If you like Teaching StarCraft, please support me by donating to my PayPal or subscribing to my YouTube channel. You can also follow me on Twitch and Twitter at twitch.tv/AdahnSC and twitter.com/AdahnSC. For more information and timestamps, please check the description below.